The message lasted less than 2 minutes, but its impact struck the palace like a direct challenge. Meghan appeared before the public and gave her full support to Catherine's newest charity initiative, praising the Princess of Wales as a woman capable of creating lasting change for families. The words sounded generous. The timing was devastating, because inside the royal household, Queen Camilla had expected that attention, that influence, and that loyalty to belong to her. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine had just launched the National Early Years Community Hubs Initiative, a nationwide charity program created to give parents practical support, strengthen childhood development, and provide families with mental health services. She had spent months shaping it into more than a royal campaign. William had watched her return from meetings carrying stories she could not forget, and he understood why the launch mattered so personally. Then, Meghan changed everything. In a publicly released charity address, she called the initiative essential work and urged supporters across Britain and America to contribute. Her endorsement carried unusual weight because she had rarely praised a senior working royal so directly since leaving Britain with Prince Harry. Donations rose. Supporters shared the speech. Palace officials began calling one another before the recording had finished circulating. Catherine watched the address beside Prince William in silence. She did not smile or reach for her phone. Instead, she lowered the tablet and asked why Meghan had chosen that exact moment. William studied her face before answering. He feared the praise might be sincere, but he knew every public gesture involving the Duchess could become a weapon inside the palace. Catherine felt grateful, uneasy, and exposed. Camilla received the news while preparing for her literacy reception. An aide leaned close and explained that several donors considering support for the Queen's program were now contacting Catherine's team. She removed her glasses, placed them beside the briefing folder, and said nothing. The Queen consort understood the danger. This was not only about money. It was about attention, influence, and which royal woman seemed connected to the future. The Palace Communications Office had not approved Meghan's speech, coordinated it, or known it was coming. That uncertainty made the moment more threatening. Was it an olive branch, a calculated intervention, or a deliberate attempt to shift power? Before evening, Camilla demanded to know whether Catherine had secretly communicated with Meghan. What appeared to be a charitable gesture was already becoming something far more dangerous. A struggle over loyalty, influence, and which royal woman the public was now prepared to believe. Behind the headlines stood 3 women carrying 3 very different histories. Catherine had spent years turning discipline into public trust. Meghan had built a life beyond palace control, but remained tied to every royal reaction. Camilla had waited decades to be accepted, only to discover that acceptance could disappear in a single news cycle. This was not simply about charity. It was about recognition, and the unbearable fear that another woman might receive what each of them believed she had earned. Catherine had never treated the Early Years Initiative as another ceremonial duty. She had shaped it through years of conversations with parents, teachers, doctors, and families struggling under pressure. The program was personal because it focused on the earliest stage of childhood, when support could change an entire life. William had seen how deeply those stories affected her, and he knew that any threat to the project would feel like a threat to the people she had promised to help. Meghan's support carried a different kind of power. Her audience included younger viewers, American donors, and people who rarely followed formal royal charity work. That made her endorsement valuable, but also dangerous. In a private sitting room, Prince William warned Catherine that she had been placed inside an impossible trap. If she welcomed the praise too openly, critics would say the message had been coordinated. If she rejected it, she would appear cold and ungrateful. Catherine listened without interrupting. She admitted that Meghan's words sounded sincere, yet one phrase disturbed her. The line about creating lasting change for families matched language from a confidential charity briefing circulated only weeks earlier. William immediately understood the implication. Someone with access to restricted planning had allowed that wording to travel beyond the palace. Harry had already feared the same storm. While Meghan prepared the recorded charity address, he asked whether she understood how the palace would interpret it. She answered that supporting children should not require royal permission. The Duke admired her conviction, but dread remained beneath his silence. He knew that even kindness could be treated as strategy when royal wounds were involved. Camilla felt those wounds opening again. Her aides confirmed that her literacy reception had been designed to dominate the week's royal coverage. Instead, nearly every major headline now focused on Catherine and Meghan. The Queen Consort had waited decades for acceptance. Yet Catherine still represented stability, dignity, and the monarchy's future in a way she feared she never would. That fear soon turned into suspicion. Camilla demanded to know who had shared the private wording and why Meghan had chosen this moment. The answer would lead everyone back to a closed ceremony, a changed speaking order, and the sentence that transformed polite disagreement into a private declaration of war. The true beginning was not Meghan's public address. It was a closed charity ceremony 6 weeks earlier, when one altered speaking order changed the balance inside the royal household. Catherine arrived expecting to announce the first community hubs beside King Charles. Instead, she discovered that her presentation had been shortened, her donor meeting had been reassigned, and Queen Camilla would deliver the evening's central speech. No argument erupted before the cameras, but behind a closed door, one sentence made reconciliation almost impossible. Catherine had prepared for the Windsor family support ceremony as the defining launch of her early years' work. The event had been created to bring several royal charities under one public program, meaning separate causes would appear together while keeping their own leadership. She was meant to introduce the first community hubs and meet the donors who could turn the plan into something permanent. Camilla's office changed everything shortly before the ceremony. Her staff argued that the Queen's senior position required her to deliver the principal address, the main speech carrying the greatest authority, and greet the most influential supporters first. Catherine received only a shortened presentation. She said nothing publicly, but William noticed how carefully she folded her original notes and placed them aside. The ceremony ended without open conflict. Catherine waited while Queen Camilla announced the program she had spent months building. The princess remained composed, yet the silence around her felt heavier than applause. Camilla accepted the attention, knowing the revised order had placed her at the center and pushed Catherine toward the edge. The real break came inside a private anteroom. Catherine asked why her announcement had been reduced without consultation. Camilla closed the folder between them and answered, "The crown cannot revolve around one princess." The words landed with brutal clarity. The Queen Consort had not treated the change as simple protocol. She had treated Catherine's growing influence as a threat. Catherine did not shout. She removed her prepared speech from the table and said she would protect the initiative without turning it into a household contest. Camilla heard restraint in her voice, but she also heard defiance. Neither woman apologized. Neither moved to soften what had just happened. William learned about the exchange that evening and became furious. He believed his wife's work had been deliberately weakened to strengthen Camilla's standing. The prince wanted answers, but Catherine warned him that an immediate confrontation could damage the program further. Then the secret traveled. A former charity contact sent Harry a recording of the revised ceremony, showing Catherine waiting silently while Camilla delivered the announcement intended for her. He showed Meghan that night. She saw proof of a woman being restrained while expected to remain loyal. Meghan's endorsement was born in that moment. It was not spontaneous praise. It was deliberate support. The wound had been hidden behind royal smiles, but once Camilla realized Meghan had seen beneath them, she stopped asking questions and began demanding answers. There were no cameras, no secretaries, and no carefully prepared statements when Queen Camilla entered Catherine's private drawing room. The Queen wanted one answer. Had the princess encouraged Meghan to make that public endorsement? Catherine remained standing, as Camilla accused her of allowing an outsider to interfere in royal charity affairs. For several seconds, neither woman moved. Then Catherine delivered a response so calm and so final that the balance between them changed before either had left the room. Camilla had requested the meeting the moment she learned that donations and public attention were moving toward Catherine's initiative. The shift mattered because royal charity work depended on trust, visibility, and access to major supporters. Catherine agreed to speak without senior aides, the officials who normally manage private royal meetings, because she wanted to stop the dispute from becoming a formal household crisis. Camilla entered carrying a printed transcript of Meghan's address. She placed it on the table and asked whether Catherine had invited this humiliation. The Queen Consort's voice remained controlled, but the accusation was unmistakable. She believed the endorsement had been arranged to weaken her position and redirect attention from her own literacy reception. Catherine felt the insult immediately. She said she had not spoken to Meghan, had not requested the message, and would not apologize for receiving support for children and families. Camilla argued that Meghan had weaponized the initiative to embarrass the Queen. The princess answered that the humiliation did not come from public praise. It came from treating children's welfare as a competition for headlines. The silence sharpened. Camilla then repeated the phrase, "lasting change for families," and demanded to know how Meghan had obtained wording from a confidential charity briefing. Catherine's expression changed. She had already noticed the match, but hearing the Queen mention it confirmed that someone inside the wider royal network had passed private material beyond the palace. Catherine revealed through a documented internal request that she had already asked William to investigate the leak. She warned Camilla that the review might expose more than an unauthorized phrase. It could uncover decisions made by the Queen Consort's own office before the Windsor ceremony, including who altered the speaking order and who circulated the restricted briefing. Camilla's anger gave way to alarm. She insisted her office had acted within royal protocol, the system of rules governing public duties and rank. Catherine replied that rank did not excuse secrecy, and authority did not give anyone the right to diminish another person's work. The meeting ended without agreement. Catherine opened the door herself and declared that the initiative would proceed unchanged. Camilla had entered expecting submission, but she left facing a far greater threat. The king would now have to choose between protecting his wife and protecting the monarchy's most trusted future queen. King Charles understood that any decision would wound someone close to him. Supporting Camilla could appear to punish Catherine for receiving praise she had never requested. Supporting the princess could leave his wife publicly diminished at the exact moment she believed her authority was being challenged. In his private study, the king read the donor reports twice, placed Meghan's transcript beside them, and remained silent. When he finally summoned William and Camilla, he had already chosen the future over domestic peace. Charles had received figures showing a dramatic rise in online interest, volunteer registrations, and international donations for the early years hubs. The program mattered because it promised direct help for parents, young children, and families already under pressure. Senior advisors warned him that delaying it now would make the palace look consumed by jealousy, while vulnerable people waited for support. The king studied photographs from earlier charity visits and stopped at one showing Catherine speaking with a struggling young mother. He knew the princess had not built the initiative for headlines. She had built it because families had trusted her with their pain. That knowledge made the decision harder, but it also made the right answer impossible to ignore. Camilla entered the study, determined to preserve her influence. She urged her husband to place all new donations under a joint royal charity structure, a shared organization that would allow the Queen's office to help control funding and public messaging. She argued that one united system would protect the crown from division. Charles heard the logic, but he also heard the fear beneath it. William rejected the proposal immediately. He told the king that Catherine's project had already been reduced once at the Windsor ceremony, and would not be absorbed simply because it had become successful. The prince did not raise his voice, yet his anger was clear. He believed Camilla wanted authority over work she had once tried to push aside. The internal review then changed everything. A documented report established that the Queen Consort's deputy private secretary had requested the ceremony revisions and later shared parts of the confidential charity briefing with an external advisor. Camilla denied ordering the leak, but Charles could no longer treat the crisis as a misunderstanding. The king delivered his ruling without hesitation. Catherine would retain full operational leadership, meaning she alone would direct the program's daily decisions, partnerships, and funds. Every public announcement would come through her office, not Camilla's communications team. Camilla accepted the decision in silence. Then an aide met her outside and revealed that several key guests had withdrawn from her literacy reception. The king's ruling protected Catherine's initiative, but outside his study, Camilla faced the first visible consequence of losing a battle she had believed the crown would never allow her to lose. The humiliation did not arrive through a proclamation. It appeared in the form of empty chairs. At Queen Camilla's long-planned literacy reception, places reserved for major donors remained unfilled as messages of apology reached the palace one after another. Some guests had redirected funds toward Catherine's program. Others wished to avoid appearing caught inside a royal rivalry. Camilla entered the room smiling, but when she noticed the gaps along the front row, her hand tightened around the edge of her speech. Camilla had spent months preparing the reception as a major celebration of her literacy work. Donors, authors, educators, and international guests had been expected to fill the room and strengthen programs designed to improve reading opportunities. The event mattered because it was meant to prove that her influence still rested on service, not only on title or rank. Then the withdrawals began. Meghan's endorsement had shifted public attention toward Catherine, while Charles's ruling made it clear that the early years initiative would remain beyond the Queen Consort's control. Several guests chose to support the princess openly. Others stepped back because they feared being drawn into a palace struggle that now looked deeply personal. Camilla paused at the entrance when she saw the vacant seats. An aide quietly suggested delaying the speech until staff could rearrange the front rows. She refused. The queen straightened her shoulders, walked forward, and began as though nothing had changed. But everyone close enough could feel the strain behind each carefully chosen word. The pressure broke for only a moment. During her remarks, Camilla lost her place after hearing photographers outside calling Catherine's name as the princess arrived for a separate family event. Silence stretched across the room. She found the line again, but the damage had already been felt. Attention had moved elsewhere, even while she was still speaking. Charles watched from the front row with painful conflict. He felt sympathy for his wife, yet frustration burned beneath it. The king knew this reception had once been meant to celebrate service. Now it had become a measure of who had won and who had been diminished. The final blow arrived through a message from palace staff. Meghan's supporters had helped Catherine's initiative exceed its first-month funding target within 24 hours. Charities that had previously kept their distance from the monarchy were now asking to work directly with the princess. Camilla completed the reception without breaking. When Charles offered his arm afterward, she declined it and walked into a private corridor alone. Catherine was waiting there. Publicly, Camilla had endured the evening without breaking. Privately, she was about to face the one person who had every reason to enjoy her defeat, and chose not to. Catherine could have walked away. Instead, she waited in the silent corridor until Queen Camilla emerged from the reception alone. There were no officials to shape their words, and no photographers to reward the stronger expression. Camilla asked whether the princess had come to witness the result. Catherine answered that humiliation was not a victory. and charity should never become a weapon. What followed was not forgiveness, but the first honest conversation either woman had allowed herself to have. Catherine understood what the empty seats would become by morning. They would be treated as a public rejection of Camilla, even though many donors had withdrawn for practical reasons, or redirected their support toward families in need. She also knew that celebrating the Queen's embarrassment would poison the moral purpose of the Early Years Initiative, the program created to support parents and children during the most important years of development. Camilla looked at her with suspicion. She asked again whether Meghan's endorsement had been encouraged, planned, or welcomed in private. Catherine answered that she had not asked Meghan to intervene and had no intention of using the message against her. The princess said the support had helped the charity, but she refused to turn that success into personal revenge. The honesty broke something open. Camilla admitted through that private conversation, with no aides present, that Catherine's popularity had always felt like a judgment on her own past. Every warm headline, every public cheer, and every sign of trust seemed to remind the Queen Consort that affection could not be ordered by rank. She had waited years for acceptance, yet Catherine appeared to receive it without asking. Catherine did not deny the pressure. She said she had spent years being measured against women who came before her and judged by standards she could never fully control. But she would not allow that burden to make her undermine another person's work. Strength, she said, meant refusing to pass pain forward. Then Catherine offered a compromise. Literacy specialists from Camilla's charity could work inside the community hubs, helping parents and children while the princess retained full leadership. The partnership would support families without giving the Queen's office control over funding, strategy, or public messaging. Camilla accepted, but Catherine set one condition. Her office had to acknowledge publicly that the Windsor ceremony changes had been mishandled. The Queen resisted for several seconds, then agreed. Their private agreement calmed the palace. But it could not contain the story. Meghan's endorsement had already escaped royal control. Inside the corridor, two women stepped back from open conflict. Outside the palace, Britain had already turned one brief message into a national judgment on the monarchy's future. By morning, the story no longer belonged to Meghan, Catherine, or Camilla. It belonged to the public. Broadcasters replayed the endorsement beside footage of Catherine meeting parents, while commentators debated whether Meghan had offered peace or exposed a royal fracture. Yet one image captured the national mood more powerfully than any argument. Outside Kensington Palace, families placed children's books beside handwritten cards reading, "Let the work matter more than the rivalry." The palace could control statements, but it could not control that message. British and international media treated the moment as an unexpected alignment between two women long placed on opposite sides of the royal divide. Catherine represented duty inside the institution. Meghan represented independence beyond it. Their sudden connection mattered because it challenged years of conflict and forced the public to ask whether service could succeed where private reconciliation had failed. Palace officials responded with a measured statement, welcoming all support for childhood development, while refusing to discuss private conversations. The statement carried the authority of the royal household, the official staff structure that manages the monarch's public work and communication. It was careful, restrained, and almost immediately overwhelmed by the scale of public reaction. One London newspaper delivered the most brutal headline: "Meghan backs Kate. Camilla left out in the cold." The front page placed Catherine greeting families beside Camilla, looking down at her reception notes. The contrast turned a complicated dispute into one unforgettable judgment. Catherine appeared connected to hope. Camilla appeared isolated by rivalry. Outside Kensington Palace, parents and children gathered with books, drawings, and donations for the community hubs. Families who had never attended a royal event arrived simply to support the cause. Their message was clear. They did not want another palace war. They wanted the attention to remain on children who needed help. Harry watched the reaction with mixed emotion. He felt relieved that Meghan's address had produced real donations and new volunteers, but uneasy that it had intensified hostility toward his father's wife. He asked whether she planned to answer the attacks against Camilla. Meghan refused. In a recorded private conversation, later documented by a close advisor, she told Harry that the purpose had been to support Catherine's work, not humiliate another woman. She would not turn charity into revenge. Catherine then spoke publicly. She thanked everyone who placed children above division, acknowledging Meghan's support without declaring a personal alliance. Her words were calm, but their meaning was powerful. That sentence cleared the way for one final palace decision. The public had already chosen compassion over competition. Now the royal family had to prove it had learned the same lesson. The final verdict came without banishment, punishment, or another bitter confrontation. King Charles stood beside Catherine and Queen Camilla as the palace announced a new partnership linking early childhood support with family literacy services. The initiative would remain under the princess's leadership, while the Queen's charity would contribute expertise without controlling it. Meghan's endorsement had humiliated Camilla because it exposed her insecurity. But the ending denied everyone the satisfaction of revenge and forced the monarchy to choose service over pride. Charles approved the partnership only after receiving written assurances that Catherine's authority, donor network, and original charitable mission would remain untouched. The agreement mattered because it protected the work from becoming another prize in a palace power struggle. Camilla's literacy organization would gain a real supporting role, allowing its specialists to help families while ending the competition between the two royal offices. Camilla entered Catherine's office before the public announcement carrying the original Windsor ceremony program. She placed it on the desk and admitted that changing the speaking order had been a mistake. The Queen Consort did not blame advisors or hide behind protocol. She accepted that her fear of being overshadowed had pushed her into a decision that damaged trust. Catherine accepted the acknowledgement, but she did not pretend the wound had disappeared. She told the Queen that trust would return through conduct, not ceremony. The princess had protected her mission without demanding revenge, yet she also made clear that compassion did not require forgetting what had happened. Camilla later faced the public without defending herself. She stated plainly that Catherine should lead the program because she had built it, understood it, and earned that responsibility. The words cost her pride, but they also ended the rivalry with honesty, rather than another carefully managed denial. Catherine then sent Meghan a brief private message, thanking her for supporting the cause. The exchange did not repair every fracture between them, and neither woman pretended it had. But it ended the moment with dignity instead of exploitation. Meghan's gesture had achieved its purpose without becoming a second attack. Charles acknowledged that royal hierarchy, the structure deciding rank and seniority inside the monarchy, could never be used to weaken effective service. William accepted another truth. Protecting his wife did not require humiliating Camilla in return. The prince had defended Catherine, but her restraint had shown him what real victory looked like. Meghan's support exposed Camilla's fear of being overshadowed. Catherine's refusal to celebrate that humiliation defined the final outcome. One woman offered unexpected support. Another confronted her insecurity. A future queen proved that strength was not measured by who she defeated, but by what she refused to destroy. There was nothing left to contest. Catherine kept her mission. Meghan's gesture achieved its purpose. Camilla faced the cost of her rivalry, and the crown learned that public respect belongs not to the loudest title, but to the person who places service above pride. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.